Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take a complicated stack of sources and distill them into the essential knowledge you need to be well-informed fast.
And today, we are opening the kitchen pantry.
We really are, and honestly, some of the things we found hiding in plain sight are a little alarming.
Indeed. We all kind of operate under this assumption that we know basic food safety, wash your hands, check the date.
Yeah.
But the sources we pulled for this deep dive detail, common, everyday foods that, if you handle them even slightly wrong, can become medically registered poisons.
And this isn't about food myths or, a minor stomachache. We're talking about established, documented risks.
Exactly. Whether that risk is a natural toxin built into the plant itself, or a powerful toxin that's produced by bacteria simply because we messed up the storage temperature.
We've got sources on everything from preparation mandates, critical temperature controls, to contamination risks that show just how much chemistry is involved in a safe meal.
And that is the mission today. Our goal is not to scare you out at the kitchen. It's to give you the specific scientific context behind why certain steps are mandatory. Why does rice need to be cooled that fast? Why must you boil that bean for this long?
Because once you understand the mechanism, the what and the why, the rules stop being these arbitrary instructions.
Then they just become common sense.
Well, let's unpack this. We're starting with section 1, toxin traps. So these are foods that are inherently toxic and need specialized preparation.
And we have to start with the gold standard of high-risk food.
Fugu, the Japanese pufferfish.
Fugu is fascinating because the risk is so centralized. The danger is a deadly neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin.
And this toxin is so potent that even the tiniest exposure is catastrophic.
Absolutely.
And it's concentrated in specific parts of the fish, right? That's what makes the preparation such an intense, skilled process.
Exactly. The toxin is heavily concentrated in the liver, the ovaries, and the skin.
So you can't just cut around it.
Well, what's critical to understand is that the risk isn't just about avoiding the organs. Improper cleaning. Leaving even a microscopic trace of those organ fluids on the edible flesh can be fatal.
Wow.
This need for absolute surgical precision is why Japanese law dictates only chefs with special licensing can prepare it. It's a direct regulatory response to a known poison.
That feels like a very exotic, specialized risk.
Huh.
But let's bring that concept of mandatory preparation right home to the kitchen counter.
Okay.
If you're prepping a big pot of chili this week, you might be dealing with a similar toxin trap, just hidden in the humble red kidney bean.
This is a truly universal risk and a classic aha moment for many home cooks. Raw or undercooked red kidney beans contain a protein called phytohemagglutinin.
And if that isn't neutralized properly,
You are setting yourself up for an extremely unpleasant time. We're talking intense nausea, repeated vomiting, and severe diarrhea. It only takes a few undercooked beans.
so if heat destroys the toxin, isn't just simmering them in the chili enough? Why are the sources so specific about the preparation mandate?
Because you have to actively neutralize the toxin before the long, slow cook. There are 3 non-negotiable steps.
Okay.
First, you have to soak them for at least 8, maybe 12 hours. Second, and this is the step people often skip, the soaking water must be discarded.
Why? I've always heard the liquid has flavor.
Because it has drawn the toxin out of the beans, you should never, ever reuse that soaking water.
That is so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But here, the liquid is the vehicle for the poison.
Precisely. And third, you must then boil those soaked beans in fresh water for a minimum of 10 minutes.
10 minutes specifically.
At a full rolling boil. Before you continue with your standard slow cooking, that's what it takes to reach the temperature needed to completely deactivate the phytohemagglutinin.
That's a perfect example of chemistry dictating kitchen rules.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at another staple. The potato. We all know not to eat the green bits, but why, scientifically?
That green coloring, or the sprouts, or even a bitter taste indicates a buildup of a glycoalkaloid toxin called solanine.
Solanine. And that's triggered by light.
Yes. When the potato is exposed to light, not just sunlight, any light, it starts producing this toxin. It's a natural defense mechanism for the plant.
So the green isn't the poison itself, but it's the indicator that the poison is building up. What are the stakes if we eat too much?
Solanine is not a trivial risk. High levels can cause much more than an upset stomach. They can lead to serious nervous system symptoms, drowsiness, confusion, headaches, on top of the nausea.
So what's the actionable advice? If I see a little green spot, do I toss the whole bag?
Prevention first. Store potatoes in a dark, cool place. But if a potato is heavily green, soft, or has lots of deep sprouts, you have to discard it.
And if it's minor?
If it's just a small spot, you can cut it away very deeply, making sure you get all the flesh around it. But if the potato tastes bitter at all, do not eat it. It's never worth risking a nervous system response to save one potato.
That reliance on our senses is a vital defense, but it fails us completely when we get to wild mushrooms. The sources use the terrifying example of Amanita phalloides, the death cap.
This mushroom is considered the most lethal example of natural food poisoning. Its toxins cause irreversible severe organ damage, specifically liver and kidney failure.
And the main danger is that they look like safe mushrooms, right?
Frighteningly similar, the mimicry is perfect, which is why local knowledge can be so dangerous.
And the delayed symptoms make it so hard to treat.
Absolutely. The toxins get absorbed, but symptoms often don't appear for 6 to 24 hours. By the time you feel sick, the damage is already being done.
Which severely hinders treatment.
It does. The iron rule cannot be stressed enough. Never consume foraged mushrooms without absolute certified expert approval.
So this brings us to a really interesting transition from inherent hazards to what we're calling Section 2, the time bomb foods.
Yes, these are foods that start off completely safe, but they become toxic after they're cooked or harvested, mostly due to temperature abuse.
Let's start with fish and something called scombroid poisoning.
This is a risk with fish like tuna, mackerel, mahi-mahi. It's entirely a post-harvest failure. If that cold chain is broken, if the fish warms up, it rapidly produces huge amounts of histamine.
Wait, okay. So if the fish has gone bad and produced histamine, what happens if I cook it thoroughly? Doesn't heat kill the germs?
And that is the key takeaway that often flips the script on how people think about food safety.
Go on.
Cooking does not destroy histamine. It is a heat-stable toxin.
You're kidding.
Not at all. You can take a piece of tuna that was stored improperly, cook it perfectly, and still get very sick from the histamine that has already been generated.
That is a massive paradigm shift because we rely on heat as the ultimate defense. So if the cold chain is broken, the food is already irreversibly compromised.
Correct. Prevention is entirely about immediate, consistent refrigeration. The symptoms mimic a severe allergic reaction, facial flushing, intense headache, dizziness. You have to look for spoilage, a metallic or pungent smell, a slimy layer, any discoloration.
That is terrifyingly relevant. Now let's talk about a risk that hits every single household. Cooked starches, specifically leftover rice, pasta, and potatoes.
This is maybe the most common food safety hazard we deal with, and it's driven by the bacteria Bacillus cereus.
Okay.
It's a spore-forming bacterium. The spores actually survive the initial cooking process, like when you boil rice.
So then what happens if we reheat leftovers? Why is rice still such a common cause of food poisoning?
Because when that cooked rice is left at room temperature for too long, say over 2 hours, those surviving spores wake up. They multiply and produce very specific toxins.
And I'm guessing they're heat stable, like the histamine?
Exactly like the histamine. Reheating your leftover pilaf until it's steaming hot will kill the new bacteria, but it will do nothing to destroy the poison they've already created.
So the danger isn't the live bacteria in the rice. It's the invisible, heat-proof toxin they created while it was sitting out.
It has to be that strict. Cooked starches must be cooled and refrigerated within 1 to 2 hours. If you have starches that have been left out for hours unrefrigerated, the sources are adamant. They must be discarded.
Without tasting.
Without tasting. That taste test is the critical point of failure that can lead to sickness.
Moving on to Section 3, the pathogen path. This is all about the risks from raw or undercooked animal products. We all know about chicken, but what about ground meats?
Ground meat has a much higher surface area for contamination. Pathogens like E. coli and Salmonella get mixed all the way through the product during processing.
Which makes it riskier than, say, a steak.
Much riskier, especially in preparations that use raw meat, like steak tartare or traditional etlishi kofta.
And we know that vulnerability isn't the same for everyone.
That's a key point. Children, the elderly, pregnant individuals, they're all particularly vulnerable. The rule has to be cook meat, especially ground products and poultry, until the center is no longer pink and hits its safe internal temperature.
So that's how we introduce pathogens. But what about foods that accumulate risk from their environment? I'm thinking of mussels and oysters.
The filter feeders, that's where the environment becomes the vector. If they're grown in contaminated waters, they accumulate everything: heavy metals, bacteria, and really dangerous viruses.
Like what?
We're talking hepatitis A and norovirus, both of which can cause severe illness.
So eating them raw is basically consuming a concentrated dose of whatever was in the water.
Precisely. The risk is accumulated inside the animal's tissue, so raw consumption from questionable sources is an incredibly high-risk activity.
And finally, two very common raw products, eggs and milk.
Raw eggs, used in things like homemade Caesar dressing or tiramisu, carry the risk of salmonella. The simple fix for home cooks is to use pasteurized eggs if a recipe calls for them raw.
And what about the debate around raw milk? It's often framed as a natural choice.
The sources are very clear on this. Unpasteurized raw milk is inherently risky. It can carry tuberculosis, brucellosis, virulent E. coli.
So what's the protocol?
The only safe protocol for raw milk is to boil it thoroughly before you drink it. Otherwise, pasteurized or UHT products are by far the safest choice.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Now for our final segment on niche hazards, the ones that require extreme care. Let's talk about the silent killer in a sealed jar. Botulism from home canning.
This is an extreme danger. It's posed by the bacteria Clostridium botulinum, which produces the botulinum neurotoxin.
And that toxin is potent.
It's one of the most potent poisons known to science. Even a minute amount can be lethal.
So what's the critical point of failure in the canning process?
Insufficient sterilization. The bacterial spores survive, and once the jar is sealed, it creates an oxygen-free environment. That's exactly where C. botulinum thrives and produces its toxin.
And this is most common in low-acid foods, right?
Oh.
Vegetables, meats.
Yes. And a simple boiling water bath, which is fine for high-acid jams, is not enough here.
What do you need then?
Low-acid foods require a pressure canner. It's the only way to reach the necessary temperatures, around 240 degrees Fahrenheit, to destroy those heat-resistant spores. A water bath just won't cut it.
And there's a crucial warning if a jar looks off.
Yes. If a lid is swollen, if the contents smell bad, or if there's any sign of gas when you open it, the most critical rule applies. Never taste it.
Not even a little bit.
Tasting it can be fatal. You have to discard the entire thing immediately and safely.
Which means what, exactly?
You treat it like hazardous waste, seal it back up, double bag the entire container, and make sure it goes into the trash where no person or animal could possibly come into contact with it.
Let's finish with one more surprising one. Fruit kernels.
This is a great final detail. Bitter almonds and the kernels inside apricots and peaches contain high levels of compounds that are basically cyanide derivatives.
Cyanide.
When you ingest them, your body metabolizes them into cyanide.
Eating one or two by accident is probably fine, but where is the real danger?
The risk comes when people consume large quantities, often because they've been told these kernels have some kind of health benefit. The high dosage turns a natural chemical into a dangerous poison. It's a powerful reminder that toxicity is all about dose and preparation.
So what does this all mean for you, listening in your kitchen? Let's summarize the 6 key takeaways that turn this fear into actionable knowledge.
First, trust your senses. The zero tolerance rule. If it looks or smells off, especially fish or home-canned goods, never risk it.
Second, temperature control is everything. Cooked food, especially starches like rice and pasta, must be cooled and refrigerated within 2 hours, period.
Third, respect the plant's chemistry. If you forage mushrooms, get absolute certified expert approval and discard heavily green or sprouted potatoes to avoid that solanine risk.
Fourth, thoroughly cook all raw animal products. Meat, poultry, eggs, raw milk. You have to hit that safe internal temperature to neutralize pathogens like E. coli and Salmonella.
Fifth, know your beans. Soak red kidney beans, discard the soaking water, and boil them in fresh water for at least 10 minutes before you continue cooking.
And finally,
If you do home canning with low-acid foods meats, most vegetables, you must master the technique. Use a pressure canner to prevent botulism. Food safety isn't just about general cleanliness, it's about respecting the underlying chemistry and biology of your ingredients.
absolutely. Understanding the science lets us respect the food without fearing it. But thinking about these temperature-sensitive foods, like histamine in fish and Bacillus cereus in rice, foods where the clock starts ticking immediately, here is a provocative final question for you to mull over. Given how dependent our safety is on precise, uninterrupted temperature control, how drastically might global changes in food distribution and local power reliability impact the future safety of the common refrigerator and pantry?
An excellent thought experiment. It really links the kitchen to the wider world.
Something to chew on. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.